So friends, we'll start with the today's lecture, and today is lecture number 3, and we'll talk about the scope of sociology today. You can see we'll talk about the scope of sociology today, and this topic is very easy and at the same time very brief. This topic is, it's not that much humongous topic. So we'll talk about the scope of sociology, and in the previous lecture we have talked about the modernity, social changes in Europe, as well as the emergence of sociology as a distinct discipline. And today we'll talk about the scope of sociology. Now this I've already shown you earlier, so we've already finished this part. We are talking about today this topic, the scope of the subject. That is, what is the scope of sociology. After this we'll be talking about the comparison of sociology with other social sciences. Okay, and then we'll move on to the last topic, that is sociology and common sense. Now these are the set of questions that have been asked from this particular topic, that is scope of sociology and then comparison of sociology with other social sciences. So once we complete this whole subtopic, you'll be able to find an answer to these questions, this kind of a question that have been asked earlier. So let's read all the questions one by one. Discuss the nature of sociology and highlight its relationship with social anthropology. Social anthropology 2024, 10 marker 50 words. So recently only this question was asked. Then discuss the relationship between sociology and political science. 2023 it was asked. Short note kind of a question, 10 marker 50 words. So last 2 years they have been asking questions from this particular topic. Then delimit the scope of sociology in relation to other social sciences. You need to understand what is the meaning of delimit, setting up the boundaries. Okay, 2022, 10 marker 150 words. Then from the viewpoint of multidisciplinarity, how do you relate sociology to other social sciences? 2021, 20 marker 50 words. Then in the context of globalization, has the scope of sociology been changing in India? Comment. 2020, 10 marker 50 words. So see, since 2020, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, they have been continuously asking the question from this particular topic. Okay, so as a result, there's a high probability that they can again ask a question, okay, from this particular topic. And the last is compare and contrast sociology with anthropology. This was asked in 2013. So there was a gap of around 7 years when they never asked a question from this particular topic. Okay, now let's start with our main thing, that is scope of sociology. Now if I have to ask you, what is scope, what does the scope means? So what does the scope means here? If you look here, what does the scope means? So I'll simply say that scope means boundaries or areas of study. You can also say what is the domain. What is the domain? Okay, like what is the subject matter of sociology? Sociology should deal with what kind of a topics? Okay, that's what we talk about, the scope of sociology. Just like if I have to tell you in a more simpler manner, if we talk about botany, then botany means that it is dealing with plants. Zoology means it is dealing with animals. Okay, if I have to say that how the earth has been formed and all those things, plate tectonics movement, so basically geology, formation of earth. If I have to talk about planets, then basically planets come under the domain of astronomy. Matter, that comes under the domain of physics. So like this we only say that for sociology, the subject matter or the scope of sociology is society, social institutions, human to human interactions, social transformation, how the society is changing, how family as an institution is changing, how marriage as an institution is changing. This all comes under the domain of sociology. Okay, so the scope of sociology is this. Now, in the earlier lecture, I have told you that sociology as a distinct discipline emerged as a response to various kind of a thing that were happening in the Europe during the 18th and the 19th century primarily. And it was the sociology as a discipline emerged to solve the problems that emerged in Europe, right? Especially the modernity. So some were actually celebrating modernity, and others were what happened, they were reflecting about the modernity in a negative sense, like Karl Marx, Joseph de Maistre, Louis de Bonald, that I talked about earlier. Okay, so this is generally, I'm telling you in a very simple language what the scope of sociology is. Now here you can say the areas of study, the boundaries of the subject. The scope means areas of study or the boundaries of subject. Now they were earlier the two main school of thoughts emerged. Remember, two main school of thoughts emerged. The first one of synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought. Synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought. And the second one is formal or specialist school of thought. Here, please be careful that the synthetic or the encyclopedic is one and the same thing. Don't get confused. Okay. Generally, there's a lot of confusion among the aspirants that they both are different. No. Synthetic and the encyclopedic school of thought is one and the same thing, and formal and specialist school of thought is the same thing. Okay, so there was two school of thought that emerged, that how to develop sociology, like what kind of a discipline the sociology should be. So two thought process or two school of thought emerged. So we look into both of them one by one, and also the associated thinker with both of them, right? Now the first thing first is synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought. Now, when we talk about the synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought, what there it means is that they believe that everything concerning with society comes under the domain of sociology. So when you say synthetic, encyclopedic, you can get it. Encyclopedic means what? Everything comes under the domain of sociology. Sociology is an umbrella term. Even you can say that these scholars who belong to this school of thought, all these scholars wanted to develop sociology as a general science. As a general science. Okay, synthesis of all social sciences. They want to develop a synthesis of all social sciences as a general science and not as a pure academic discipline. Okay, and that is why they said that each and every aspect of society comes under the domain of sociology. And that is why the scope of sociology for them is very broad, exhaustive, and expanding. It keeps on expanding. Okay, it's very broad, exhaustive, expanding, holistic. Right? And these scholars who were belonging to the synthetic or encyclopedic school of thought, we also say that they always look at the society or study society at macro level. What it means is that they were trying to only focus at social factors, which means generally the rules, regulations, values, norms which is governing human behavior. So always looking at social factors, they were not looking at minute human to human interaction. So they were talking about the patterned way of interaction, focusing upon patterned way of interaction. And they were generally using what? natural science methodologies to arrive at generalization. To arrive at generalization. Okay, so they were having a kind of an aerial view, a broad perspective. They were not going into a very nitties and gritties of human to human interaction. This is what I'm trying to say. Okay, they're not talking about individual meanings and motives. They're not talking about how individual person is designed. They're not going into the genetic, psychic level of individual. They're only talking about social factors which is governing individual behavior. And they had this notion that everything that is concerning with the society comes under the domain of sociology. So sociology is a kind of an umbrella term. Okay, and this school of thought also advocated synthesis in the form of coordination among all social sciences. Advocated synthesis in the form of coordination among all social sciences. And how? See, if you have looked into the first two lectures, I have talked about certain things. Like I have talked about Auguste Comte, I have talked about Karl Marx. So I have given you for them how the society has evolved from one stage to another stage. Like, I'll just write it down here only. Like Auguste Comte, when he was talking about evolution of society, what he was talking about, how the society evolved from theological to metaphysical to positivist stage. Remember this thing? So 1, 2, 3. So how the society throughout the historical epoch have evolved, just like organism has evolved. So this is what we can talk about, combining sociology with history. Right? Similarly, like Karl Marx, while talking about the evolution of society from primitive communism to ancient society to feudal society to capitalist society to communism, again a combination or showing a culmination or synthesis between sociology and history. Similarly, if you look here, like Emile Durkheim, I'm just introducing you to all these things. I'll be talking about all these things in lot of detail, especially Karl Marx, Emile Durkheim, and I'll be talking about thinkers in Unit 4. He talked and he made a landmark study on suicide. So suicide, which was earlier seen as a pure psychological phenomena, now this subject was studied sociologically now. Sociologically. So again, a synthesis, a kind of a mutual coordination exchange of topics, of different concepts. Now this shows what? Sociology plus psychology. Right? So this is how we look into things. Now, when I've talked about synthetic encyclopedic school of thought, this school of thought was there since, you can say, 1830s till 1880s. This school of thought was dominating. Okay, this school of thought was dominating. Now I'll talk about certain things like related thinkers. See, these are the related thinkers, and we're discussing all of them one by one, just like we'll talk about Saint-Simon, Auguste Comte, Emile Durkheim, Pithrim Sorkin, Karl Mannheim, L.T. Hobhouse, Maurice Ginsburg. Okay, and these are the thinkers that you must quote. If I'm giving you 7 thinkers, at least quote 3, 4. Like Saint-Simon, you must quote Auguste Comte, Emile Durkheim, Pithrim Sorkin. You must quote 3 to 4 thinkers positively so that you can gain good marks. Okay, any doubt till now? Now, we will look into certain thinkers who are associated with this school of thought, that is synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought. So, first thing is Auguste Comte. Auguste Comte. Now, Auguste Comte regarded sociology as the queen of all sciences. Queen of all sciences. Okay. And for them, for Auguste Comte, who was a positivist, he said that sociology deals with certain things, and these thing is what are the reasons why society is able to maintain order and stability, and also deals with all the things that brings change in society. Change in society. Okay, so he said that scope of sociology is social statics and social dynamics. In two words, he defined the scope of sociology. And this reason why society is able to maintain order and stability, this is called social statics, and why it brings change is called social dynamics. Okay, so just imagine a society. Society is able to maintain, sustain also, and also small changes keeps on happening. So now everything comes under the domain of sociology, because everything that is concerning society now comes under the domain if you talk about social statics and social dynamics. Okay, because society is able to sustain or able to maintain order and stability, and yet small changes keeps on happening. Okay, every time. Now social statics means those aspects of society which is not changing continuously. Though small change will occur, but they're not changing that much significantly. And that you can say like family, marriage, education, economic institution, political institutions, etc. But when you say social dynamics, these are those aspects of society which are continuously changing, like population, migration. And because of change in these two aspects, what are the changes that are brought in the society? So everything concerning the society basically comes under the domain of sociology, and thus the scope of sociology as per Auguste Comte, social statics and social dynamics. Okay, any doubt in Auguste Comte? Any doubt? Now we will talk about here we'll be talking about, when you talking about the this YouTube sessions. Here are you talking about only YouTube sessions? In this YouTube sessions, I'll be this free lecture series, I'll be talking about only Unit 1. Okay, only Unit 1. Holistically, I'll be covering everything. Okay, and not the whole sociology. The whole sociology will not be covered. Then comes the next thing is that is L.T. Hobhouse. L.T. Hobhouse. Now, what was the view of L.T. Hobhouse as far as talking about the scope of sociology? And he said that the whole social life of a person comes under the purview of sociology. I'll just delete everything. He said that as far as scope of sociology is concerned, whole social life of an individual comes under the domain of sociology. So when we use this word whole social life, what does it mean? The moment an individual is born, how he grows up to become an adult, then old, and then ultimately dies. So the kind of interactions that these people are having, okay, that is human to human interaction, how they're also interacting with the social institutions. Because society is what? It is a web of relationship between human to human. How human to human interact with each other. These all comes under the domain of sociology, society. Okay. So when you say that whole social life of an individual comes under domain of sociology, it means everything that is concerning with society now coming under domain of sociology. Okay. So there's nothing, not even any particular part that should not be a subject matter of sociology. This is how L.T. Hobbes was also talking about. And he was also saying that relationship of sociology with other social science is of mutual exchange. I'll just write it down here. Relationship of sociology with other social science is of mutual exchange. Okay. And here you can talk about lot of things, just like Emile Durkheim again, Auguste Comte, Karl Marx. Even Karl Marx, you can use it with respect to sociology and economy, because he developed his theory about society on the basis of economic inequality. Okay, that there's an economic inequality, and all the means of productions, they are owned by the, or the factors of the productions, they are owned by the bourgeoisie class, and in that sense they are exploiting the labor class, that is called proletariat class. Okay. Now next we talk about is Emile Durkheim. Emile Durkheim, a very important thinker, and we'll also be dealing with Emile Durkheim in our unit 4. What he said with respect to the scope of sociology, as we know that Emile Durkheim was a positivist as well as the functionalist. So if we talk about the scope of sociology, he divided the whole scope of sociology into 3 parts. Okay, 3 parts. That is called social morphology, social physiology, and general sociology. Okay, social morphology, social physiology, and general sociology. Now what is social morphology? Now please listen to it very carefully. It includes all those subjects which are fundamentally geographical in nature. All those aspects of society which are fundamentally geographical in nature. Okay. Now here when you talk about geographical in nature, you can talk about things like population size, population density. Okay, all these things. Population size, population density, and that is how he used the word material volume, material density. Okay, I'm using the word here, material volume and material density, because this population, as the population increases or decreases, it will increase or decrease the intensity of human to human interaction. That is why when we have any particular area where the density of population is very high, the human to human interaction will be very high. That is why it results into a lot of conflict. If there's a dispersed population, the human to human interaction will not be that much. Okay, so that is why he was talking about social morphology, because it affects the quality of social interaction, the social relationship, how human to human interact. They all affect the quality of social interaction. Okay, then comes social physiology. Here This social physiology is inclusive of all those subjects that are studied by particular social sciences. Inclusive of all subjects that are dealt by particular social sciences. Okay, all those subjects that are dealt by particular social sciences or studied by. Now here you can say things like sociology of family, sociology of religion, sociology of law. Sociology of religion, sociology of law. These all things, okay, sociology of economic institutions, sociology of political institutions, they all come under domain of sociology. So what you're saying, different kind of an institutions that are formed or part of society comes under the purview of sociology. Anything that is keep on changing, like population size, population density. Population is a very important component that is going to affect the quality of human to human interaction. This also comes under domain of sociology, social anthropology, social physiology. Now what is general sociology? Because he divided the scope of sociology into three parts, and this general sociology is the philosophical part of sociology. Okay, is the philosophical part of sociology, and the main function of this general sociology is to arrive at some kind of a law, to find out the law governing the society. So it is a philosophical part. Sociology, and aim is to arrive at law like generalization. So what he was doing is that he was using philosophical concept to study society, to arrive at law like generalization. Just like he said, only the subject matter of sociology is social fact. Social fact. See, these sociological jargons might seem very heavy to you right now, but as we move forward during the lecture whole course, you'll find that these topics are very easy. Social fact is a way of acting, feeling, thinking that exercise an external constraint on an individual. They have an independent existence of their own. I'm just telling you a definition. It is just like you can say religion is a social fact, language is a social fact, law is a social fact, etc. Everything, okay, like this, they come under the or can be treated as a social fact. Because how can you say religion is a social fact? Because they constrain your behavior. Suppose you're a part of any particular religion, so religious ideology is going to govern how you should behave, how you should interact with other, what should be you what should be eating pattern, dressing pattern, interaction pattern, everything. Okay, everything is governed by that particular religion. People may come and go, they will come, they'll die down, but religion will always be there. So religion has this own independent existence. So using the philosophical concepts like social fact, Emil Durkheim was trying to understand society, trying to arrive at generalization. Okay, and that is how he also said the suicide is also one of a social fact. Is also one of the social fact. Okay. So when we talk about philosophy, again it is showing a culmination of what? Sociology versus philosophy. A mutual exchange and coordination between sociology and other social sciences. One of them is philosophy also, because he was using philosophical concept. So see, when he says that the scope of sociology is divided into three parts, this part talks about population, this part talks about various social institutions, and this part talks about philosophy, because through philosophy he was trying to understand society, and by understanding society he was trying to arrive at law like generalization. So basically everything falls under the domain of sociology. Can you imagine anything that doesn't come under domain of sociology? So many things comes under the domain of sociology. Okay, so this is what we talk about the Emil Durkheim. Then comes Karl Mannheim, a very famous book. He talked, the book name is Ideology and Utopia. How did he talked about the scope of sociology? He talked about systematic and general sociology, and second is historical sociology. So what does systematic and general sociology means? Any doubt till now? Okay. So when we talk about the systematic and general sociology, it deals with rules and regulations and various kind of norms because of which people are living together and forming a society. So rules, regulations, norms, because of which people are dealing with each other, interacting with each other, and how these rules and regulations led to the formation of society. Okay, so systematic and general sociology. So basically these rules, regulations, all these things governs one's social life. The whole social life is governed by rules and regulation because it is setting up your dressing pattern, eating pattern, interaction pattern, everything, right? And what about the historical sociology? Under historical sociology, he said that there are two parts, that is comparative sociology and social dynamics. Now what is comparative sociology? When you talk about the comparative sociology, it means historical variation of the same phenomena. Historical variation of the same phenomena. Just like how family has changed. What is the nature? How the nature of the family, how the structure of the family has changed throughout the generation. Like earlier there was a joint family system, now there's a nuclear family system. Now different form of families have started emerging. Okay, then like you can say one parent family, okay, or you can say same sex couple family, like that. So different kind of a family and the structure has been evolving. Like marriage, how marriage as an institution has changed, how education as an institution has changed, how political institution has changed. Like earlier there was a monarchy, dictatorship, democracy, all these things you can talk about. And if this is comparative sociology, what is social dynamics? Like how the changes are occurring in society. It is a kind of interrelationship between various social factors and institutions in society. Interactions between various social factors and institutions in society. Basically, you're talking about the change that is occurring in society. Change that is occurring in society. Like suppose earlier the society was very orthodox. Okay, so the interaction pattern, human to human interaction, will also be like that, right? Just like suppose earlier the caste system was very rigid. So the human to human interaction, how one person will be interacting with the person of the person from the another caste. So they'll be interacting in a particular manner. But as the society becomes more and more liberal, as the people become exposed to the modern education, the liberal ideas of liberty, equality, fraternity and everything, so the caste system that was earlier very rigid, now it will become diluted. So human to human interaction will again change. Now they will not following the tenets of caste system that much. Okay, so this is how we can say social dynamics, because it is also bringing small changes. Social transformation is going on because change is an essence of life. So we are talking about rules and regulations which is governing one's social life, also able to maintain order and stability. But at the same time, historical sociology, like comparative sociology, how family is changing when you compare it from one stage to another stage, and also small changes that is occurring throughout. So order and stability and changes, both the aspects are covered. Then this means what? The scope of sociology is very broad. Everything comes under the scope of sociology. The same thing was talking, Emil Durkheim was also talking about. Okay. Then comes Pitrim Sorokin. He also talked about the scope of sociology, and he talked about scope of sociology in two parts: general sociology and specific sociology. Now, what does general sociology means? General sociology means institutions that are found all over the world. Deals with institutions that are found all over the world. That are found all over the world. Okay, and it means, example you can give, like family is everywhere. Some or other form of family you will always find everywhere. Marriage, religion, some form of political institutions, some form of economic institutions. These institutions you will find out everywhere. Then we have a specific sociology. Institutions that are peculiar to any particular society. Institutions which are peculiar to any particular society. Just like you can say in India, we have a caste system. Okay, like that. Now we are dealing with all the institutions that are present or common everywhere, institutions that are peculiar to all the particular kind of a society. So again, the scope of sociology is very broad and exhaustive. Okay, broad and exhaustive. Now, before I move to this formal specialist school of thought, as we talked about this synthetic or encyclopedic school of thought, you can say that these people earlier, this broad school of synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought, they were talking about that scope of sociology is very broad, exhaustive, expanding, holistic, and their idea was that everything falls under the domain of sociology. Okay, so everything when falls under domain of sociology, so nothing escapes sociology. This is how we say. Okay, nothing escapes sociology, right? Now, when from 1830s till 1880s, this synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought, it was prevalent. Now from 1880s, yet another school of thought started popping up, and that was called formal or the specialist school of thought. Specialist school of thought. Now this formal or specialist school of thought, it developed as a criticism to the earlier school of thought, that is called synthetic or the encyclopedic school of thought. So this formal or specialist school of thought, they believe that sociology scope is very limited. Not everything falls under the domain of sociology. Not everything falls under the domain of sociology. Because earlier, this synthetic school of thought, they were saying that everything comes under the domain of sociology. So for them, the scope was very high. The domain was very high. But now, this specialist or formal school of thought, they said that scope of sociology is very limited. Not everything falls under the domain of sociology. That is why we have a specialist. It is just like you can say synthetic or encyclopedic and formal or specialist. So synthetic encyclopedic, you can say MBBS, and formal specialist, you can say some kind of a specialization like cardiologist, gynecologist, and all those things, some kind of a specialization. Okay, so for them everything comes under the domain. For them, a particular organ, they're dealing with this particular set of disease or organs, like that. Okay, so if they talk about specialization, so automatically the scope of sociology will become very limited. Now they believe that the scope of sociology is limited. Why? Because they deal with small human to human interaction at micro level. Earlier, This synthetic was going at macro level, broad level that they were going. It is just like that for any particular society, you're going and having a drone view, aerial view. Okay, what is the layout of the society or what is the layout of the city? But you're not going deep down, like how the roads are constructed, how the people are interacting, how the buildings are designed. You're not going to that part. This is what they are saying. That is called formal specialist school of thought, that they're talking about small group human to human interaction. Now they are saying that the focus or the overall scope of sociology is to deal with individual meanings and motives. Individual meanings and motives. This is what we say. Okay. So how a person is thinking, what is driving them to behave in a certain manner, this is what formal specialist school of thought is talking about. They are going to psychic level, because each and every individual, they are designed in a particular way. So these people, they behave as per how they are designed, how their psychic level is. Their behavior is not a factor of social factors. They are not driven by social factors. They are not driven by societal laws, values, rules, regulations, and whatever. They behave depending upon how they are designed. Okay, so they are going at a psychic level. Any doubt till now? Now, so I've told you, see, this formal school of thought started gaining traction after 1880s, and it was there till 1940s. Till 1940s, this formal school of thought was in lot of prominence. Now there were certain thinkers who were associated with this formal specialist school of thought: George Simmel, Max Weber, Alfred Winkelried, Leopold von Weiss, Albion Small, Ferdinand Toynbee. All these things we'll talk about. Then first thing is George Simmel and Max Weber. I'll combine both of them. Okay. See, both of them were talking about things. They were focusing upon micro aspect. They both were focusing upon micro aspect. So when they were focusing upon micro aspect, so you cannot arrive at law because you don't see human behavior in a patterned manner. That you cannot come up with a formula to define human behavior, because every human behave in a particular manner. So they focus upon the micro aspect. They focus upon individual meanings and motives. Okay, and they also focus that overall society is very dynamic, and so it cannot be studied. Okay, it cannot be studied holistically. They believe that society is very dynamic, and thus it cannot be studied in a complete holistically manner, because it keeps on changing. So when it keeps on changing, cannot arrive at law. Society is very dynamic, and thus holistically, right? This is how we say. Then we talk about Alfred Winkelried. See, Alfred Winkelried, what he says, that sociology is a special branch of knowledge. It's a special branch of knowledge that deals with psychic nature of individual. Special branch of knowledge that deals with psychic nature of individuals. So when he's using the word psychic nature, it means that each and every individual is designed in a different manner. So how the two people are interacting with each other, it's a completely different from. So a person who might be interacting in a very friendly manner with one person might not be interacting in that same friendly manner with another person. Okay, because the whole dynamics changed. Okay, the whole situation might get changed. Okay, now the next is Leopold von Weiss. Even Leopold von Weiss was talking about things at micro level when he says that why people are interacting with each other, and why they are interacting and how they are interacting, and it is driven by true process. So overall, every social relationship is driven by true process, that is called associative and dissociative. Associative means that they are interacting in a friendly manner, and they are interacting in a hostile manner. Dissociative means, okay, associative and dissociative. So every relationship is driven by two factors, two process, that is called associative and dissociative. And generally this is what we talk about. If we say that this formal of the specialist school of thought, they were talking about interaction at a micro level. So if two people are interacting, they'll either interact in a very friendly manner, okay, or they'll interact in a hostile manner, right? So this is talking about what? Only at micro level we are talking about human to human interaction. So very specific branch of knowledge that sociology is. Then we come across Ferdinand Tönnies. See, he talks about Gemeinschaft and Gesellschaft. The same thing that I used earlier also in our lecture 1 and 2, where I talked about Ferdinand Tönnies. Gemeinschaft, which talks about simple society. Gesellschaft, because these both are the French word, so make sure that the spelling is right. Gesellschaft means modern society, modern or industrial society. So see, even right now, both these kind of societies are existing side by side. Just like in simple society, we can say the tribals, they are living a kind of a simple social structure is there. Okay, very simple commune living, joint family system is a kind of a thing that tribals people are living. And right now, so many people, they are living in a modern industrial society where there is individualism, rationalism, like this. So when you talk about these things, see, different kind of society are existing. People behave differently in this society compared to people behaving in this kind of society. So in both these kind of a society, the behavior of a people is different. People is different. So when they are different, so we're focusing upon what? They are behaving because the interaction pattern is different. So we are not focusing, we're not saying in a broader sense, we're not saying that they are differently, overall they are behaving in a particular manner. What we are saying is we're focusing upon individual human to human interaction. In this kind of society, they are behaving differently. In this kind of society, they are behaving differently. So we're focusing upon individual to individual interaction. And that is why we can say that sociology should be a specific branch of knowledge focusing at micro level interaction. Okay, micro level interaction. Then comes Albion Small. Albion Small used a word where he said that overall there is a genetic form of social relationship. Genetic form of social relationship, this Albion Small used. Genetic form of social relationship. When you talk about genetic form of social relationship, it means what? Again, we are talking about how, when we use the word genetic, how a person is psychologically and biologically designed. Psychologically and biologically designed. So every person is different. So we cannot arrive at law like generalization. So again, we are talking about at micro level interaction. Okay. Now, there's one more statement that you can see here. This formal school of thought was further extended by phenomenology of Alfred Schutz and ethnomethodology of Harold Garfinkel. I'll be talking in a lot of detail what is phenomenology, what is ethnomethodology in our unit 2, because these two, phenomenology and ethnomethodology, they both are anti-positivists. Anti-positivist. Okay, which means that they do not at all believe in overall. They do not at all believe in overall things like that you can arrive at law like generalization. They do not believe in all these things. Okay, they only believe that each individual is psychically different. Okay, they focus upon individual meanings and motives. So they are focusing upon psychological aspect, because every person thinks differently, so they are focusing upon how the person mind work. Okay, so again, cannot arrive at law like generalization. You cannot define human behavior on the basis of a single universal formula. Okay, any doubt till now? Now there was a merging of formal synthetic school of thought, and this started gaining traction from 1940s till 1990s. Okay, 1940s till 1990s. So there were certain things, just like Talcott Parson. We'll be discussing a lot of detail about Talcott Parson in our unit 4. So he was talking about structure of social action, where he was trying to combine both social factors and individual factors. So he was trying to merge both, that individual behavior is driven by not only societal factors but also individual psyche. So this is how he's trying to merge both of them. Okay, and he was also talking about things like pattern variables. These pattern variables is a kind of a dilemma which is confronting individual, like how to behave. Okay, and this pattern variables, again, all these things will become more clear when we talk about Talcott Parson in unit 4. So he was also talking about 5 different kind of a pattern variable, just to give one or two, like particularism versus universalism. Then you can say ascriptive versus achievement, and etc. All these things we'll be discussing in our unit 4. There is no need to discuss in lot of detail. Then R.K. Merton. R.K. Merton was also talking about merging what? Both formal and synthetic school of thought. Okay, by talking about things like middle range theory. Suppose this is positivist who were talking about formula, and there were certain people like anti-positivist who were saying that you need to focus only upon psychic level, so you cannot arrive at formula. So formula cannot be arrived. He was saying always take a middle path like a Buddha. Okay, because certain things your behavior is a culmination of both social factors and individual factors. So I was talking about middle range theory, again a kind of, you can say, reconciling both formal and synthetic school of thought into one single theory. He was also talking about things like latent functions and manifest functions. Latent and manifest. So manifest functions, like what consequences does your behavior have for the society. Okay, so he was talking about what? At psychological level. Manifest is at psychological level, and latent voice at societal level. I'll discuss all these things in a lot of detail, because R.K. Merton is also one of the very prominent thinker that we'll be discussing in our unit 4. Then we have C. Wright Mills. He was talking about a very beautiful concept of sociological imagination. Sociological imagination. Through sociological imagination, you can take an example of, suppose you are living in a society, okay, and just imagine that you are very obese, है ना? And all of a sudden you started experiencing lots and lots of health problems. So now, because you are living in a society, you see all your friends who are very fit, so you also want to shed some weight and get fit. And that thing, that you are living in a social environment, social milieu, which is motivating you to go and become fit, shed certain weights. And at the same time, why you're going to join the gym? Why? Because maybe there are things like at individual level you're not feeling well, okay, you're psychologically you become more weak, but the social factor is also motivating you. Social factor is also motivating you. Maybe the gym is nearby, all the accessories to go to the gym to do the exercise is also nearby, your friend circle is like that, which is motivating you, seeing them. So whatever the way you behave is not only driven by individual factor, but it's also driven by social factors. Okay, so in order to understand yourself, how you behave, you need to understand your social milieu also. So again, your behavior is a culmination of what? Your psychological factor, your individual factor, as well as social factors. So again, a merging of both formal and synthetic school of thought, like that. Okay, and use the word sociological imagination. Okay, and when you talk about like your individual factor, we say it as a private issue, and when you talk about things which is at the societal level, we talk about as a public issues. Okay, then we have Anthony Giddens. He also used the word agency versus structure. Agency means individuals, while structure means society. Okay, that you are behaving only as per your individual factors, or you are behaving as per societal factors. And he said overall that individuals are driven by both, that is, even individual factor works and societal factors work both, and the middle path is here is structuration. In agency versus structure, the middle path is structuration. Okay, he even used the word double hermeneutics. This hermeneutics means interpretation. So there is a single hermeneutics, which means that you are trying to understand how a person behaves solely at the level of societal factors. But he said that sociology should go for double hermeneutics. To understand holistic understanding, to develop a holistic understanding, we should always go for double hermeneutics, because single hermeneutics means only we are trying to understand social forces, but in double hermeneutics we not only focus upon social forces but also individual meanings and motives. Okay, so this is how we talk about. Again, he was trying to merge both of the formal as well as synthetic school of thought. Okay, any doubt till now? Now I'll talk about things like scope of sociology was further expanded. See, we have talked about things about synthetic or encyclopedic school of thought from 1830s till 1880s, then 1880s to 1940s, this is formal or specialist school of thought. Then 1940s to 1990s, there was a merging of both that I talked about earlier. Now since 1990s, okay, in fact, yes, 1990s, the scope of sociology was further expanded. Okay, and we'll talk about certain things. We will talk about feminist. Now this feminist, they started seeing society in an altogether different way. Okay, they was, you remember I talked about certain scholars in the first slide only, first lecture only, where I was talking about Mary Wollstonecraft. Okay, that is way back in 16th century, but still I'm giving certain more scholars name here, just like Simon de Beauvoir, Anne Oakley, Shulamit Firestone. And then uh, Simon de Beauvoir. So all these scholars, what they were seeing society in a radically different manner. Okay, why? What they were saying is that earlier the scholars, they were simply focusing upon studying the society. Okay, now these feminists, they started talking about gender inequality. So they started giving gender based explanation to society, that in society there is a gender inequality. So they started giving gender explanation to social reality, that gender inequality is there. Okay, so any kind of an explanation that they were giving, they were focusing upon gender inequality. And thus, if you look into society from a particular perspective, from a particular prism, and you focus that we need to restore the gender equality where women are treated as equal to men, so this means what? The scope of sociology further deepens and further expands. So feminists helped to further broaden and deepen the scope of sociology. Because earlier, the sociologists were only focusing upon the issues that were prevalent in society. Now, feminists given a different angle, look also into the gender inequality, the sufferings of the women. Remember Mary Wollstonecraft, what she said, that what state does to its common citizen is everybody, like, is known to everyone, but what man does to its women is not known to everyone. Okay. Similarly, the Marxist, like Karl Marx, he gave a very radical view, understanding the society, that in society there is an economic inequality because of which so many people are suffering, the majority of the people are suffering, and it is leading to what? Poverty. So poverty is something which is man-made, it is not natural. Why? Because only handful of the people, certain very small percentage of the minority people, they are owning all the means of productions, they are controlling all the factors of production. Means of production means like industries, tools, technology, everything that you talk about, capital, land, everything is controlled by handful of the capitalist class people. And majority of the people, like labor class, they are giving their labor, and in return they are paid certain wages, and when the wages are not as per the amount of or quantum of work that they are doing, so as a result there is a mass poverty. So when the Marxists talk about understand society from an economic angle, this also further broadens the scope of sociology, deepens the scope of sociology, because now every sociologist started looking at society and studying all social institutions from economic angle. Because Marx was also only saying that it is the economic institution which is affecting the whole society. Basically, economic institution is a foundation. It is a foundation. Economic institution is the foundation. So it is the economic institution which is affecting the whole society. Just like for any particular house, we have a proper foundation, and on the basis of foundation, it is affecting the kind of superstructure that we have. So in the same, using the same logic, he said that economic institution forms the foundation, and because of the economic institutions, it will determine the kind of society that we have. And when we talk about economic inequality in the capitalistic society, he was talking about bourgeoisie and the proletariat. So this is how he is envisaging society, and we'll deal about Karl Marx in a lot of detail in our unit 4. Then we have neo-Marxist as well. Neo-Marxist, just like Antonio Gramsci. It is Gramsci, Antonio Gramsci. He was neo-Marxist in the sense that he made certain changes in the Marxist ideology. While Marxists say that the bourgeoisie class were able to rule over the proletariat class by perpetuating certain false consciousness. But neo-Marxist, like Antonio Gramsci, he was saying that the people, they are able to rule, or the bourgeoisie class, they are able to maintain their hegemony over the labor class, because not only through, you can say, controlling all the means of production through coercion, but also by giving them certain concession. So hegemony is maintained also through concession, also through concessions. So that is why you see, whenever there's a strike in a particular industry, what happens is that this managerial or the bourgeoisie class, they give certain bonus, they give them a leave, they give them certain compensation, because you cannot make any particular person work through coercion. Through forcefully, you cannot make any person work. Now the situation has changed. People are now becoming aware of their rights. So the bourgeoisies are using manipulative tendencies to control the majority of the population by giving them certain concession, bonus, or something like that. Okay, so that is why they are called neo-Marxist, Antonio Gramsci. Now the scope of sociology further expanded, and this I'm talking about primarily post 1990s. And there's a set of scholars called postmodernist scholars who were now believing, and they were saying that scope of sociology further expanded. Why? Because society has become more and more complex now, especially post 1990s. Society has qualitatively changed. Qualitatively, it has changed immensely. Various kind of things have started popping up, like environmental issues, terrorism issues, super specialty institutions, like, you can say, super specialty hospital, IT infrastructure, all this kind of institution has emerged. So this itself has made society very complex. Qualitatively, it has changed a lot. Human to human interaction has changed a lot. Now there are certain thinkers I'm just talking about, like Jacques Derrida. Remember their name. In case a question comes, you need to quote these thinkers. Jacques Derrida was talking about deconstruction of language. Deconstruction of language. Why he was talking about deconstruction of language? Because language in today's world has become very complex. Language itself has become very complex. So that is why we say, na, today's the people, the kind of language that they are using, it is a two meaning, like dual meaning words that they are using. So first, to understand the reality, you need to decode the language. Once you decode the language, then you will be able to make a holistic understanding of situation. Like whatever a friend is saying, maybe he might be, using a word which is manipulative in nature. So you might get duped. So to understand the total reality, you need to decode what he's trying to say, he or she is trying to convey to you. Okay, so that is why you need to focus upon decoding the language, because society has become so much complex today. Then Mitchell Foucault talked about a word called discourse analysis. Discourse means what? Debate. Discourse means debate. Now when you talk about the discourse analysis, he's saying a person in a society is powerful to the extent if he or she is able to influence your opinion through debate. So anybody, if a person has the capability who is able to influence your opinion, change your mindset through debate, that person to that extent is very powerful. Okay, so discourse analysis, who is actually exercising the main power. Then comes Alan Bremen. He was talking about to understand any social phenomena, you need to use both quantitative method plus qualitative method. Qualitative method. Now what does it mean? Okay, what does it mean? Suppose you're talking about sexual harassment at workplace. Take a case study like this. So if you have to do a study, suppose how many cases have been reported in last year in any particular industry. So first you'll try to arrive at a particular figure, maybe 750, 850, whatever, in a particular society. So this is called quantitative. You are able to give a number to any social phenomena, okay, a particular numeric number. But when you talk about the qualitative, you are now going for in-depth analysis and try to arrive and answer questions like why this happened. So you'll go for a detailed interview both with the accused and also with the victim to understand why this is happening, why any particular incident happened. And once you have the data for this thing, you'll be able to have a holistic understanding of social phenomena. Any particular topic, you'll be able to develop a holistic understanding. Okay. Then we have Jean Baudrillard. Jean Baudrillard, what he was saying is that who is powerful in today's world. So he was talking about that in era of mass media, any people who are creating science and languages, who are controlling mass media, are the people who are powerful. So who are the people who are powerful? Who are controlling mass media? Who are controlling mass media? Because they are creating certain science, languages, and this is influencing you. Just like we have YouTube influencer, Instagram influencers. So the people who have lots and lots of followers, what happened? They are able to influence your thought process, able to influence, change your mindset. Okay, so to that extent, they are very powerful. Just like you can say various kind of a big companies who are using advertisement to dupe you to buy their products. Okay, it could be any kind of yes. So science and languages influencing. Okay, so controlling mass media. So any doubt till now? Any doubt, friends? So this is the scope of sociology where you talk about post 1990s. Now we talk about, see, we have covered the whole scope of sociology in a lot of detail already. Now we'll be talking about certain further points also, certain further points to give you extra content so that in case a question comes, you're able to answer those questions as well. We're talking about the scope of sociology expanded further with the help of globalization because of certain things. Now we talk about interconnected world. See, in the era of media, in the era of social media, in the era of internet, because of increased communication, what happened now? People are becoming aware of other people's culture. Okay, so when they are aware of other people's culture, now here you can say that the people are, they are not living in isolation. Okay, so how the human to human interaction is changing, how their culture, how certain traits are imported from one society to another society. Just like we have McDonald's burgers here, just like we have certain Indo-Western clothes trend here. Okay, so this is how we talk about, and this leads to what? The change in the human to human interaction, their living pattern, dining pattern is changing, and how the human behave, that comes under the domain of sociology. Okay, so because of globalization, the scope of sociology further deepens and broadens because of the interconnected world. Then comes weakening of national barriers. See, because in the era of globalization, what happened? The people are moving freely. Okay, so they are able to move from one country to another country, and because of this, there are two different things that's happening. in some society the people are becoming very apprehensive of foreign people who are migrating to their land, and some people are simply accepting the foreign people who are coming. Okay, so it might lead to conflict also. Okay, and it might lead to also amalgamation of the people from two different culture, and as a result a new set of people or maybe the next generation with a mixing of the culture is popping up. So again the human to human interaction completely changing, the society demography is changing, and that comes under the domain of sociology, and all those things is because of globalization. Then social mobility. See, because of lot of job opportunity, okay, lot of job opportunity, how the people are able to climb up the social ladder, and because they are able to climb up the social ladder they are able to change their social status. So earlier, just like in India, the earlier when the job was decided on the basis of caste system, now they're not restricted to the caste system. Okay, and based upon their skills, based upon their merit, they are able to venture out in the field and take whatever job they are good at. Okay, so it is again changing, what it is bringing a drastic change in the society, and this is happening why? Because of the globalization, because globalization is leading to lots and lots of job opportunities. Then we have social impact also. See, people are exposed to new ideas as they migrate. Okay, when they migrate to a particular area, they are exposed to the local culture, customs, laws, rules and regulations, and that changes their thought process. And that also brings not only change in thought process but also everything, how they're interacting. So that is why if an Indian is going to any Western society, so the period of time their way of speaking, their way of thought process completely changes. So in that way their interaction pattern also changes, how they're going to interact with the fellow members, both in the outside world and also in their home country. Again, that comes under domain of sociology, and this all is happening because of globalization. Then we have a psychological impact. See, in today's modern world, because of the globalization, there's a lot of competition, everybody is running for limited resources. So most of the people now they are feeling very alienated, they are alone. Okay, mostly they feel loner, because now the relationship is mechanistic. Relationship is not of any kind of thing where you can go and seek help from someone. Okay, people have a very individualistic tendencies, and they give more importance to material conditions than to having an empathy towards any stranger. Okay, so again this psychological impact, how this psychology is impacting the human to human interaction, the thought process of an individual, again this comes under the domain of sociology. Then comes increased awareness among masses. See, because of globalization, increased contact, increased interaction among the people from different culture. Now these people, especially the deprived section of the society like women, people from the lower caste, now they are aware of their rights. So when they are aware of the rights, they start asserting their space, whatever has been denied to them for so many thousands of years. Again, this brings a radical change in society. A social transformation is going on, and that transformation is possible because of globalization. Okay, and lastly is growth in self-selected culture. See, when we have this thing that because of globalization people are interacting, so people from particular different cultures, they are coming together to form a group, just like people who like a hard rock music, or people who like a classical music, people who like painting, people who like dancing. So when these people come together and form a particular group, so their interaction pattern is completely different within a group. However, the way they interact with the people from people with the who are not belonging to that particular group, that is completely different. So this is, again, you can talk about there's a growth in the self-selected culture, and this growth in self-selected culture is because of globalization. Okay, I hope you are able to connect all those things, because they are not at all difficult, they are quite easy. Okay, now how in era of globalization the scope of sociology in India changed. Now when you talk about in era of globalization, in last few decades, you say that there is a change in the population. Okay, in the sense that there is a huge migration, incoming, outgoing, right? And whenever a population of any particular demography changes, maybe some illegal immigrants have come to a particular area and they've started inhabiting, so slowly and slowly, for after a decade or so, the demography of that particular area will change. As a result, the conflict might occur. So what is the reason for conflict? How the social interaction pattern is changing? How it is affecting the society? Is it leading to chaos, or a completely new culture is emerging? So this is what comes under the domain of sociology. Okay, and this population change because of migration is happening because of globalization. Then new kinds of movements are also emerging. Just like you can talk about women movements, you can talk about environmental movement, you can talk about different kind of a movement, just like farmer movement. You might have remembered about the George Floyd case, that is Black Lives Matters. George Floyd case, that is Black Lives Matter movement. Then you can also talk about certain environmental movements, just like Niyamgiri Hill movement. Okay, you can also talk about recent movement, that is Kancha Gachi Bawli movement. Bawli forest movement. There's a movement to protect this forest against deforestation. All these things you can talk about. Then you can also talk about gender inequality. We can talk about the feminist people who were talking about or showcasing that there is a gender inequality that is still existing. And you can talk about Me Too movement, a Me Too movement which is where the women are trying to reassert the space that has been denied to them for so many years. Okay, then you can talk about family structure, how the family is changing, how the family, which was earlier there was a joint family system, now there's a nuclear family system that is in prevalence when the people are migrating from one place to another. So this bringing a marked change not only in the family but also the structure of the family, the hierarchy of the family, everything is changing. Then we talk about the marriage. Even in the era of globalization, because of so much of awareness, now suppose a society which is orthodox comes in contact with a society which is very liberal society. So slowly and slowly the ideas will diffuse here and there. Okay, just like in marriage, now marriage is not considered that much of sacrosanct bond. Okay, so divorce is not seen as something which is ostracized if not celebrated. Okay, so marriage is seen as a kind of rational decision. Okay, and people get married only to fulfill their some kind of a selfish interest. Okay, so it is not seen as a kind of a sacrament bond that cannot be broken. Then we have a social values. We talk about the social values because now even the values have changed. Earlier, if you talk about the values of honesty, justice, empathy, collectivity, various kind of truthfulness, now these all values have gone a radical change. Now the people talk about individualism. They talk about that we should not have empathy. They focus upon only themselves. So there's a self-centered attitude that is popping up. Okay, materialistic culture is popping up. All these things. So values have also changed. Just like food and clothing pattern is changing. Just like we can say McDonald's burgers. Okay, we can talk about the momos culture that is popping up. Clothing pattern like Indo-Western dresses, right? Even the music pattern, Indo-Western music, street dance, culture that is going on, street dance culture. Then we have a employment. How the employment is also there because people now they are climbing up the social ladder. So here, when they're climbing up the social ladder, they are changing their social status. So earlier, where the people they were suppose people from the lower caste, they were forced to do a particular menial set of activities. Now they're able to go based upon their skills, merit. They are able to take up whatever job they want. So this is how bringing a radical change in society as well. Then talk about social behavior pattern. When you talk about social behavior pattern, now people are becoming more and more individualistic. They are behaving in a manner which is able to fulfill their needs. So that is why you see even you are connected with only those set of relatives who are able to fulfill some or the other need of yours. Okay, so conditions or the relation is very materialistic. Are you able to gain something out of the relationship or not? Okay, then we have empowerment of deprived section. When we talk about the empowerment of deprived section, why? Because now they are aware of their rights. So now they become more and more assertive. That is why you can see there is a different culture that is popping up. Flaunting of their car, flaunting of their caste on the car. Okay, then you can say some caste based political party which is popping up. Okay, especially people from the lower caste, they are coming together and forming a political party so that they can work for the empowerment of their own section of society, right? So this is how you can say how in the era of globalization the scope of sociology in India has completely changed. Now the significance of sociology, again some further points so that you are able to answer all the questions. See, scientific study of society. When we talk about sociology, how society actually works, how society is actually functioning, it simply could be decoded by doing the research in society. Okay, suppose you're talking about the poverty. Okay, so poverty, maybe there's an assertion that it is related with job, but it might also lead to the overall revelation that it is also related with education, also related with increase in formal sector, is also related with no social security benefit or low wages, like that. Okay, so when you develop a complete holistic understanding of society, you'll be able to understand each and every phenomena. What is the real reason? And once you know the real reason, you'll be able to resolve that issue as well. Then we have enables understanding of social interaction, like how human to human they are interacting with each other. Okay, just like you can say that how people are interacting with each other in a friendly manner, how people are interacting with each other, and why they're interacting in friendly manner or for that matter in a hostile manner, right? Then examines the role of social institutions, like what is the role of various social institutions, for that matter the role of family, what is the role of education. Role of education is to create a good human capital for the society. The role of family is for adult personality stabilization, socialization. Marriage, the role of marriage is procreation, legitimate reproduction, okay, sexual gratification. So you need to understand what is the role of each and every social institution. This could be only done when you use sociology to study the society and the social institution, and what is the utility of each and every social institution, what is the role. Then contribution to human culture, like why humans are behaving in a particular manner, why they are behaving in a particular manner. So when you are a sociologist, you have this objective frame of mind that you're simply studying society and you're not comparing it with another society. Okay, suppose here you are coming that why Hindu women they are wearing a Mangal Sutra, why Hindu married women they are wearing a Mangal Sutra, why they are having vermilion on their forehead. So if you compare it to other society, it might not be of that much of relevance, but you should study everything, all the rules, regulation, custom norms with particularly with respect to only that society only. Don't make a comparison. Okay, don't make a comparison. That is where Redcliffe Brown, he used the word no ethnocentric biasness, or Bronislaw Malinowski, who used the word cultural relativism. No ethnocentric bias matlab don't compare, don't say that I am superior to compared to your culture. Every culture is different and unique in its own way, just like cultural relativism. Okay, don't compare the culture, don't compare the culture. Everything is unique, everything is special in its own way, and understand the society in its own perspective. Okay, then we have significance in planning of society. When we talk about overall understanding society, we also, it also helps when you understand society, it also helps in overall planning of the society, because now you'll be able to understand the population, how much the population is growing, extrapolating it, whether population is increasing or is decreasing. Then you're able to understand migration, what is the migration pattern, are the people more incoming is there, like that. And then if the migration rate is very high, it is going to change the demography of any particular place, so it might lead to various kind of an issues like crime. There might be increase in the crime rate, there might be increase in the you can say poverty, there might be increase in the slum, growth of slums, and all those things, and how to tackle all those things. Okay, then important declining dealing with the social problems. See, social problems like you can talk about child marriage, you can talk about alcoholism, you can talk about suicide rate, you can talk about divorce, you can talk about poverty, you can talk about drug addiction, anything for that matter. If you develop an holistic understanding, you'll be able to deal with all these issues as well. Then sociology is a career option also. See, whenever you become a sociologist, what will happen whenever government makes any kind of a policy? So they will always take in input from the sociologist. Like they have to, if they have to tackle the issue of the domestic violence, okay, or they have to tackle the issue of the dowry, if they have to tackle the issue of the child marriage or drug addiction, they'll always take the input from the sociologist, that what is the main reason why this certain issues is persisting in society, okay, and how we can tackle these issues. So again, it is a very good career option. Then we have awareness about our roles and responsibilities. See, when we talk about sociology, you talk about human to human interaction. And when you talk about human to human interaction, you talk about things like a person or a human has multiple roles, and accordingly, as per the role, there are corresponding responsibilities. Like, suppose if I'm talking about male, male is a husband, a son, a father, friend, brother. Similarly goes for the female, and more roles are there, and according to each and every role, how they need to behave, what society expects from them, like that. Okay, and last one is significant development of developing countries. When you use sociology, you develop a holistic understanding of society. Okay, so it helps in overall gauging, like how the society, what kind of a path they should follow so that they become more and more developed. And talk about things like, if you say that any country is still not developed, the reason being is that maybe the female education is neglected. Half of the population is not educated only. Okay, the literacy rate among the female is very less. And if you talk about the inclusive society, what is the way of inclusive society? Creating an inclusive society, overall social empowerment of females. Okay, this is how we talk about. So once you understand the main thing, okay, what is the root cause of any particular problem, it will be quite easy for you to chart out the trajectory, like which path to follow, so that a developing country also comes at par with the developed countries. Okay, so this is called a significance of sociology. I've just given you certain further points. If you have more further points, you can write it down, provided it is apt as per the you can say the demand of the question. Now friend, that marks the today's session, where I talked about the scope of sociology in lot of detail, and I think that content that I've given you, that is more than sufficient for you. So tomorrow I'll start talking about and deal with the comparison of sociology with other social sciences. So thank you and all the best.